up, dudes? This is Julia. I changed my intro a little bit because I was told on multiple occasions now that I start all of my videos the same way, whether it's the stories or the IGTV. I always say, "What's up, guys?" And to me, that's normal because that's how I would address people. I always address people by title. What's up, boss? What's up, coach? What's up, doc? What's up, whatever. Like, everybody has a title and a nickname in my book, so I was like, "What's up, guys?" And dudes is the closest I could come up with, the best I could do, so we see how original I am. All right, so today we're going to talk about part 2 of stress management as a concept for athletes dealing with performance stress. Okay, so in the last video, if you haven't watched, it's also on IGTV, so probably go watch that one first. I explained basically how the nervous system works and how stress basically happens, but a quick little review would be that the definition of stress is just that it's a response to internal or external change in the environment. Okay, so that would mean, in performance context, the presence of spectators, or knowing there's a scout in the audience, or having to take a penalty kick, or a free throw, or if it's in a test, knowing that there's a time. I mean, there's all kinds of stresses that one could react to externally, but then it's not inherently negative, it's just neutral, so it comes into our brain as neutral, and then our brain appraises it as positive or negative or irrelevant based on whether or not our brain finds that it's potentially threatening to us, because our brain and body are always trying to save our lives. And that's the moral of the story. But the body has this really cool built-in stress system in the autonomic nervous system, okay? The parasympathetic and the sympathetic, right? So the gas and the brake pedals. And they can't be completely turned on at the same time, so we need to basically pull the foot off one of the brakes in order to fully initiate the other one. Our body recovers in parasympathetic mode, so we can't have the stress response going on in order to fully recover. So we're going to address today how we can cope with stress while it's happening, and that's what I call the maintenance phase. So the last phase that we talked about was the preparatory phase. We always want to prepare beforehand. That's what we know as athletes. In order to get a good performance, the best prepared team is generally the one who wins, and that applies as well in mental training. So preventing stress before it happens and learning how to cope with it in advance is always the good go-to. Okay, but maintenance. Inevitably, stress is going to come up. If you've ever been a competitive athlete, or you've been alive for more than 5 minutes, you know that stress just happens whether we like it or not, whether we're prepared for it or not, it just does. So again, once the brain has appraised whether or not it's positive or negative, it started the stress response. Now we have what's called coping. And during this coping phase, we are going to try and limit the stress. This is how we figure out what to do with it. Where to place it, whether to inhibit it a lot of times, or we maximize it a lot of times. And a lot of us have coping mechanisms that we've never even thought about. They're just intuitive, they just happen. And a lot of times they're positive, and a lot of times, sometimes they're negative. And we don't ever really realize what they are. So we're going to go through a couple of them. And keep in mind that coping mechanisms are skills that we have to learn. So again, this could actually be the preparatory phase. It has to be done in advance. All right, so the first thing is to bring this into your subconscious. So a lot of times we get stressed out and it's just like, what are we stressed about again? I forgot, I'm just feeling stressed. So a lot of times to bring this into our subconscious, because the system runs involuntarily, right? A lot of times we don't realize how worked up we are about it. To bring it back into our consciousness and be like, why am I stressed out about this? What is it that I'm freaked out about? What is it that I'm feeling? Is it a completely other emotion as stress? Sometimes it's anger, sometimes it's embarrassment, sometimes you're really positive and really happy, and your body interprets that as, this is a change in the environment that I wasn't expecting, and it feels dangerous because I wasn't prepared for it. Could be any of those things. So a lot of times identifying that stressor and then asking, so can it hurt me? Is it dangerous? Is it immediately going to have a negative impact on me? Can it actually do anything to me? Does it have any power over me? Yes or no? And a lot of times that will actually limit the stress just by thinking through it, by bringing it into the consciousness as opposed to the subconscious process. Another thing is to make sure your self-talk is positive. As one can imagine, as a competitive athlete, especially as things go south, as sometimes they do, sport is very quickly high and very quickly low. That's the excitement and entertainment and beauty of it all. We can get lost in that negative spiral of poor self-talk, where we just badger ourselves and are belligerent and very negative towards ourselves, and that doesn't actually help. Some research has shown that potentially negative self-talk can help certain kinds of people perform better, but in situations where you're already stressed out, you're already upset, and that negative self-talk is then a reflection of you being upset and feeling poorly about yourself and having low confidence, it does not help. So in this case, having some affirmations in your brain in advance where you just repeat those things over and over to yourself, I'm mentally strong, I'm capable, I've trained for this, I'm a leader, those kinds of things, even if they're not related to sport, even if it's like, I'm generous, I help other people, I'm kind, like those kinds of things. Just affirming yourself will help to build your confidence and keep you more focused more on the positives, even if it's a negative situation for you. So that can sometimes help limit the stress or refocus you on the positive self-talk, faking it until you make it, until the stress diminishes. Regeneration is really important, okay? So we live in a society, especially in the sports world, where we say you always have to earn your recovery and your rest. That's not actually the case, because the body is working 24/7, okay? And stressful situations are really, the body has a system in order to work it out, but chronic stress can be very, very negative. So especially if your stressor is like a tournament season or an in-season, those are really long things. So your body always needs to recover during the stress process, and then afterwards if it's a chronic stress situation. You can't just be like, oh, after exams or after this 4-week tournament or after the Olympics or whatever, and then I'll rest. Like, that doesn't work. You need to find time during the stressor in order to rest if it's an extended stressor. Otherwise it could potentially lead to burnout, which is kind of a buzzword in the last few years, but also a very real issue, especially in this economy of the world and the politics of the world and whatever, but in sport as well, as it becomes more, money driven, essentially. The other one, while we're maintaining, is your ecosystem. So it's the other things besides sport that keep you alive. Like, is it music? Is it your family? Is it your friends? Is it your studies, your job? Is it other hobbies you might have, other things you like to do, other talents you might have? What other things keep you going besides sport? Because when we're in a chronic stress situation, it can be really easy to be like, my life is sport, my life as an athlete, like, this is my major source of stress right now, but it's also my major identifier, it's also my major focus. When you can shift your focus from, yes, this is stressing me out, it's my identity, it's my focus, to that's not all that I'm about, there's also other things I like to do, there's also other people who support me, and kind of take the focus off just being stressed all the time and this being the only thing you focus on. That's inherently stressful. So having other things to look forward to talk about, to learn, to whatever, having other things in your life, being multidimensional as a human being, again, you have to do this in advance. You can't just do it in the middle of a stress situation. That can help you shift the focus away from being stressed out all the time, because chronic stress is really bad for us, and can allow some time for regeneration, but also building confidence and being more well-rounded, multidimensional. I hope this helps. In part 3, we're going to talk about damage control, what to do after stress has happened and we couldn't prevent or really maintain during it. So keep your eyes out next week. Sayonara.